Go ahead. Okay, I'm going to call the Surrey Police Board to order. First of all, the Surrey Police Board recognizes that our work takes place on the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territories of the Coast Salish people. Under adoptions, somebody move the adoptions of the agenda. Somebody move it. Seconder, all in favor, against carried. Number 2, adoption of the minutes of April the 20th, 2021. Somebody move them. Seconder, all in favor, against carried. Under reports, our first report is our Chief Constable report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome everyone. I'm happy to report on 3 items. First is our Surrey Police Service crest. It's been widely reported on. We're very proud of that crest. Secondly, our vision of where we want to go as a police service. And then our values. So important to have our values. And I know that we spent so much time in working these values to come up with something really succinct and yet meaningful for the citizens of Surrey. I want to draw your attention to the motto, and it has not been widely reported on, but our motto will be on our police cars as well as our stationery. And the motto is safer, stronger, together. And the SAFER stands for making it a safer community for the citizens of Surrey. But beyond that, stronger means that community wellness comes into play. And together, obviously, we have to do that with all the stakeholders, with the citizens of Surrey, and working together towards the goal of making Surrey a great place to live, work, and play. I also want to highlight a couple of other things that we have under development. Policy is one. I'll speak to that in more detail in a moment, but that requires a lot of work. And I have a whole team of people working on that, and we are meeting our goals. And the third thing that I'll talk about is all the equipment that's required for our constables once they land on the streets of Surrey. And that means everything from the uniform to all the tools that they need to do their job safely and effectively. That is well underway. There's a procurement process, and it's proceeding quite efficiently, and I'm very pleased at what stage it's at. 2 more things that I'll mention. At the present time, we're looking at standing up our recruiting unit. That is going well, and we will build that up in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then, as you know, we're going to be having community consultation, so planning is underway, and we'll be discussing that further this evening. And I'm really excited about the community consultation and what kind of information we can glean from the citizens of Surrey. That concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Any comments or questions of directors? Seeing none, somebody move receipt of the report. Oh, go ahead. Who's that?
That was me,
I can't see who that is, so just say your name. Huh? Or Director Modell, is it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the report, Chief. I just had a quick comment on it, and it was a phase 2 of the community consultation. I know we're going to go into it a little bit more detail later on, but just for the community standpoint, a very high level of some of your thoughts around that, please.
Yes, there's ostensibly 2 streams. The first stream will be a community survey. And secondly, there'll be community focus groups. What's important to know is that Surrey is divided up into 5 districts. So both the survey and the focus groups will be based on the individual districts. We know that certain districts, certain areas of Surrey will require a slightly different policing model from the rest of Surrey. And so we want to be very specific and getting information to what will be the requirements or expectations from the community in that regard.
Okay, thank you. Call the question. All in favor of receipt? Against? Carried. Next is our executive director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report is before you for your information. It really gives you information related to the service or policy complaints pursuant to Section 168 of the Police Act. So it outlines where the public can make complaints directly to the police board, either directly to the police board or through the police complaints commissioner. So it just outlines staffing and resource allocation, training programs or resources, standing orders or policies, the ability to respond to requests for service, and internal procedures. So attached to this report is some guidelines that the OPCC released to all police boards in 2019, and that information still stands, so that's for your awareness. If the board receives a service or policy complaint, there are a number of steps that can be taken by the board, and there's timelines associated to all of this that's in more detail in the attachments. You can assign to the chief constable, undertake your own study as a board on the matter, initiate an investigation, dismiss the complaint with reasons, or take any other course of action that you see fit to adequately respond to the complaint. I will support you through service or policy complaints. When required, I will bring in legal counsel. So this is for your information and awareness at this point, and if the time comes that we have a service or policy complaint, we will action the information within the memo.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions? Motion for receipt, please. Somebody move it. Seconder. All in favor? Against? Carried. Under Finance Committee, first one is budget update year-to-date expenditure. Director Modell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll just bring you up to date on where we stand. Next slide, please. So expense summary. So this report is
Director Modell. Director Modell, can you? Your voice is very weak, and we're having a hard time hearing it. Can you maybe speak a little louder?
Okay. So can you hear this better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Thank you. So this report is year-to-date expenditures up to and including March 31st, 2021. Total expenditures to date for this year is $2,107,370. We are underspent compared to the total budget available. Budget for 2021 includes $20.6 million, which is carried forward from 2020. Which has been reallocated to 2021 and, of course, future years. So as mentioned in the last board meeting, areas of significant expected spending in 2021 include information technology, of course, the infrastructure, the recruitment, assessment, and training. Next slide, please. So the impacts is $41.6 million available as to the end of March. Total projected spending for 2021 fiscal year will be approximately $29.5 million. And by the end of 2021, SPS expects to carry forward $14.2 million to 2022 and future years. Now, you understand, given the requirement to broadly confer with the province and the Government of Canada, the timing of expenditures is not always as precisely as planned. Next slide, please. So this gives you a 5-year policing transition projection, year-to-date budget reconciliation up to the end of March, just in a balance forward for the current year, what's available, current year actual expense, and year-end projections as we just reviewed. Next slide, please. So in a pie chart, this becomes a very visible, easy way to take a look at it. You see it from information IT is the largest component, and then of course the HR, recruiting, training, the infrastructure, and then it breaks it down to the smaller pieces of communication and marketing, and of course legal, financial, and policy. Next slide, please. And that's the report, and we ask Mr. Chair, the board receive this report for information, please.
Okay, any questions or comments of anyone, first of all? Okay, don't see any, so a motion for receipt, please. Seconder, all in favor? Against, carried. Second one is financial procedures for management of major capital expenditures. Director Modell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the recommendation is the acquisition of major capital assets having a value of at least $500,000 and include an SPS approved budgets. The expenditure be a request be forwarded to the City Council for payment authorization upon the board having approved the expenditure unless security, confidentiality, or safety issues are necessary otherwise. So you've reviewed the report. Really the discussion is one, the budget process, our obligation to pay out on approved expenditures. 2 is authority over capital expenditures and standard practice. 3 is a procurement process and expenditure approval. And then finally, a conclusion. What we're really working towards is a relationship, a positive working relationship between the board and the City Council, and will be supported with the development of a world-class police service. While the essential role of the board is to insulate the police from political interference, support from the city and City Council is required to facilitate and enhance the functions of SPS, particularly related to the acquisitions of major and capital assets. And that is my report to be received. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions of directors? Okay, seeing none, there is a recommendation there. I would ask somebody move the recommendation. Seconder, all in favor? Against, carried. Under governance committee, number 1 is policy development. Director Chappell, or do you want our chief to do it?
Yeah, we're going to defer to the chief as I was absent during that committee meeting.
Okay, thank you. If the chief could summarize this report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Policy development for any police service is so important. Policy covers everything from the training requirements, service expectation to the community to investigative standards. And within the Surrey Police Service, this will probably encompass about 200 policies. At present, we have a team of people that are working through the various policies, and in your materials, you'll see that there's a schematic as to the workflow. Suffice to say that when a policy issue is identified or a need, then it's validated through subject matter experts. It's written up by the subject matter experts. It's checked against other policies in other police organizations. Then it passes a legal review, and then it essentially comes up to my office for chief's approval, and then it moves towards the board. What's important to remember, after the board approves it, it goes to the province for final approval. So in this process, as far as Surrey Police Service policy is concerned, there is at least 3 levels of review to ensure that the policy is adequate and effective. And we are moving forward actually in a very efficient fashion. And we will present to the board groups of policies because it can become overwhelming to have a large number of policies to review at one time. And so in I'll say bundles of policies, we'll present to you, explain those policies and have that discussion, and then move through the schematic upwards towards provincial approval. That would be my report, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any comments of any directors?
Yes, I have
Director Modell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, if you could just clarify for our viewing audience, a few that we have. The Policy Development Working Group is made up of SMEs within SPS. There's in the open session, there is actually no, that acronym is used. However, there is no definition of that acronym. So if you could just mention that, please.
Sure, thank you for that clarification. SME stands for subject matter experts. So if there's a need to develop a policy in the investigative area, we would get senior investigators to develop this policy, again, to check the policy against other like agencies, and then specific to the Surrey Police Service, draft that policy, and then it would go to our legal counsel, then essentially to myself, and then to the board.
Okay, Director Briscard.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a process question for the chief. Will you be presenting the policies to the board, or is it going to be the Policy Development Working Group presenting to the board?
I will personally present those policies because I endorse them, and I'll be able to explain them to the extent where they are very complicated. I'll get the subject matter experts to attend that meeting as well.
Okay, I would ask for a motion to receive. All in favor? Against? Carried. On to information. There's 2 letters to the board. One letter is from myself, just describing the City of Surrey's 2021 priorities, goals, and objectives for policing. For information, the second letter is from Minister Farnworth, just approving the association's resolutions. Could I have a motion for receipt of both letters? Seconder? All in favor? Against? Carried. There's no new business, and our next meeting will be June 22nd, 2021. Need a motion to hold the meeting in a closed session. Somebody move it. Seconder, all in favor? Against? Carried. And a motion for adjournment. Seconder, all in favor? Against? Carried.